Hi everybody, this is cyoubx, and this is part 2 of my tutorial on how to get faster at the Rubik's Cube. And in this video I'll be covering the practice ethics and concepts you want to have to successfully reach sub 20. A few notes before we begin: there are many different ways to practice, as well as a multitude of concepts. So here I'll only glance over the key ideas that I want you to have due to time constraints and stuff like that. But I'll leave it up to you to do further research, and also keep in mind that in the future I will be making tutorials on a lot of these concepts, so you might want to subscribe in order to see those in the future. Yeah, so actually, why don't we just get started? I guess the other note that I will say, though, is that this video will be divided up so that based on what you want to shoot for, so based on different time barriers. So it'll start with slower tips, or tips for slower people, and it'll get progressively faster. So I'll have annotations here and there throughout the video so that you can just skip to where you want to go. I will say, though, that if you're trying to break sub 20, you might want to actually check out the sub 30 stuff, because there might be stuff you don't know, and you might find some of the tips there to practice helpful as well. And the reason I'm doing this video is because oftentimes people wonder, like on the forums and stuff like that, they always ask, how can I get faster? And every single time the answer is practice, and the reason people say that is because it's really honest, and that's really what you do, you just practice. But in this video, I guess I'm just going to give you maybe more specific tips on how to practice that you might or might not be doing. So yeah, I will start right now with the general tips. The first general tip I can give you is that you want to set a very good time goal. You want roughly 2 seconds below the standard milestone. So if you want to break sub 30 and you're sort of hitting like 31 seconds and you can't drop under 30, don't make 30 your goal. Make 28 your goal, and then you might get 29, but hey, you're sub 30. So, and if you want sub 20, make 18 your goal. In fact, that's what I did to finally break sub 20. So that's the first thing. Number 2 is use an inaccurate timer. I know this sounds really weird, but if you use a timer that's actually really slow, it'll help you. So you can find timers online, or make your own if you know a bit of computer science or whatnot. But really what you want to do is, or what you can try out is, have a timer that will give you like 16 seconds for maybe a 20-second solve. What that will do for you is you'll feel pretty good about yourself, of course, because you'll be like, oh yeah, 16 seconds. But what's going to happen is if you can get that to 15, you'll be breaking the barrier before you know it. And the reason this works is because it actually ties in with the first tip, which is that you have now changed your barrier. You're not worrying about sub 20 anymore. You're worrying about getting faster than 16. So anything faster than 16 might actually be sub 20. You just don't know it. So that's kind of why. And then the third general tip is don't always time yourself. I usually like to do mental solves maybe twice a week for some period of time, and or mental walkthrough solves, and you just sort of tell yourself, okay, next I do this, blah blah blah. And the reason that works is because if you can explain it to yourself, then you're not really worried about how fast you're doing it. You're actually thinking about maybe optimal crosses or stuff like that that will help you in the long run. So those are the 3 very general tips, and from here on out I will sort of give you breakdowns of what you want to do, starting with 40 seconds. So if you're averaging 40 seconds and you want to get to sub 30, you're going to want to try to optimize your F2L moves. F2L is going to be the place for the most improvement, as you'll see throughout the rest of the video. And it may seem difficult to improve at all, but it actually becomes easier with practice. So again, practice. And at 40 seconds, really all you have to do is just solve the cube over and over again, paying special attention to F2L. And sub 30 is actually not too difficult. One thing that might be keeping you away from sub 30 might actually just be your cube. So check part 1 of the series for more information on that. But really, if you have a semi decent cube, sub 30 should come in a very small period of time. And so the breakdown that you want to have for sub 30 is generally across in 6 seconds, F2L in 14 seconds, OLL in 5 seconds, and PLL in 5 seconds. So all of this is actually really manageable, and if you think F2L in 14 seconds is very, very fast, it actually is not. Believe me. 14 seconds is plenty of time, so you should be able to do it, no worries. So let's say you want to get sub 25, which to me is sort of the next big deal, because after you're sub 30, you're going to want to be sub 25, and this is going to be the time when you want to learn all of your PLLs if you don't know them already. Two-lick PLL is fine, but if you know all of them, it actually makes you go quite a bit faster. I personally learned all the PLLs when I was around 24 seconds, but in retrospect, I think it would have been better for me to learn them earlier on. So that's kind of why I'm telling you this. And you want to make sure that you find comfortable finger tricks for all of your PLLs. Choppy algorithms will slow you down. Ironically and hypocritically, for the T-perm, I actually do a regrip. Other people don't. It's right here. I move my right hand. Most people just do a continuation. But it sort of ties in with what I said earlier. You want to find comfortable finger tricks. Not just necessarily the fastest ones or the ones that everybody else uses. Because it's different for every person. So yeah, that's why I do my T-perm that way, for instance. And the other thing you're going to want to do for sub 25 is practice cross and F2L. I can't stress that enough because it really is F2L that's going to change your times. Yeah, so you want to practice those two things. And the sort of breakdown you want to shoot for is across in 4 seconds, F2L in 12 seconds, OLL in 5 seconds, and PLL in 4 seconds. So what that actually means is that your PLL drops by 1 second. OLL doesn't change. You don't have to do anything with OLL. But your F2L will need to be faster by 2 seconds, and your cross will need to be faster by 2 seconds. And if you do learn all your PLLs, then maybe you can do your PLL in 3 seconds or something, and you can do your cross in 5 seconds, which is very manageable. So then comes the elusive sub 20. This is what a lot of people want to shoot for, and actually it was pretty difficult for me. Before this, practice and new algorithms were all you needed to get faster, so like more PLLs and stuff like that. That worked. But for a lot of people, 22 or 23 seconds seems to be a huge barrier. I myself was stuck at 23 seconds for like 3 weeks, which may or may not be a long time, but for me, I thought it was a pretty long time. And in the end, the only major difference was the way that I changed how to solve F2L. So before tackling F2L, it's advisable to learn the rest of the OLLs. Or, I mean, you can learn it while you're practicing F2L. But I think, to be brutally honest, I still don't know 2 of the OLLs, and I'm finally sub 15. I have developed fast ways to solve the other 2 OLLs, and even then, they don't really show up that often, so it's okay for me. Keep in mind that learning the additional algorithms will only help you a marginal amount, probably not enough for sub 20. So if you learn all of the OLLs, you're not necessarily going to get sub 20, unless your 2-look is absolutely terrible. What it really comes down to is F2L. You will need to be able to solve F2L in 12 seconds, and that includes the cross. So cross plus F2L in 12 seconds. That's what you want. And to do this, look ahead is going to be your worst enemy, but it's going to be your best friend with practice, because look ahead is actually the key to sub 20. The idea is to track F2L pieces or pairs while solving the main one. So there's a lot of ways to do this, such as searching during insertion. which I will show you actually. As a side note, you'll notice that I will be breaking the 10-minute barrier. In fact, I might be breaking the 15-minute barrier because I can actually upload very, very long videos on YouTube now. So, okay, let's build the cross. I have cross on white. And so, searching while inserting means that while I pair this up and I'm going to put it into the slot, I look for pieces. So, I see these two. And as I insert this, I look for pieces, and I see these two. So that's kind of how that works. That's a very basic way to do it, and it sort of works. I don't prefer it. For me, I used to bifurcate my eyes, so I would look at this while looking at this as well. It takes quite a bit of concentration, and I don't really recommend it. Basically what I do now is I sort of just know what case I have for F2L, and then I can just concentrate on the other pieces. So that's what I do now. To practice this, there are a lot of ways to practice look ahead. One of the most popular ways is to use a metronome. I personally hate using a metronome because I feel like F2L should have acceleration. There's no need to go at a stable pace when you're on your last F2L pair, unless you're looking ahead for OLL, which isn't actually that important for sub 20. So if you're shooting for sub 20, metronome didn't work for me. I didn't like the idea of it, but it might work for you. So maybe you want to give it a try. The other thing that people like to do is something called 2-look F2L, which is basically you look at two different pairs, so 4 pieces for F2L, and you close your eyes, solve both of them, and then repeat to solve the other two. I cannot do it. Even today, when I can do F2L in about 6 or 7 seconds, I cannot do 2-look F2L. I get close, and I have done it before, obviously, but I can't do it consistently for whatever reason. But if you can do it, then look ahead will be very, very easy for you. So you definitely want to give that a try. I actually like the idea of it, I'm just not very good. In the end, though, the most important thing to remember is to slow down during F2L. The reason for that is it gives you a better chance for look ahead, and you can recognize more relevant pairs, and this is what actually dropped my times by 3 or 4 seconds. Not overnight, but actually within a week. So it was very, very useful. Look ahead is definitely something you want to learn. If you want to know how I actually practice look ahead, I actually did, I don't know why I just did that. So how did I practice look ahead? What I actually did was I used 2-gen scrambles, which was an idea that I sort of thought up on my own. And basically you scramble using R and U, and you try to solve the cube without cube rotations. Mainly just F2L, because I don't know what you use for OLL and PLL, but you might use cube rotations. So, you know, build a cross just like you would, and then just solve all the cases. And the reason I did this was because this way I could practice the F2L pairs without cube rotations, but it actually helped with look ahead as well, just so that I only had to pay attention to 4 pieces versus all 8. And to take this one step further, you can do the same thing, but 3-gen, so L, U, and R. And it's the same concept, you know, just do whatever, and yeah, so it's the same thing. I don't do this so much anymore, but it definitely helped. So that is one of the major tips. And then for other rules to get faster, try PLL time attacks. I personally don't like PLL time attacks, but the idea is that you want to execute your PLLs as quickly as possible. An alternative to doing this is to time each PLL case you get, and try to get all of them under 3 seconds. And so the breakdown you really want to shoot for is a cross in 3 seconds, F2L in 9 seconds, OLL in 4 seconds, and PLL in 3 seconds. So in contrast to the previous stage of sub 25, what you're really doing is you're getting faster at cross and F2L, and I think you should notice that OLL is only faster by 1 second. So OLL isn't a huge crucial step, but I will say that it is very possible and very easy to do OLL in under 2 seconds, which basically relieves stress in some other step. So beyond this, you're going to want to learn other advanced techniques, such as extended cross and rotationless F2L. These are nice ideas to know, but they're not mandatory for sub 20 times. You don't even need OLL, because 2-look OLL is sufficient for sub 20 as long as your F2L is fast enough. So I hope you found this video helpful. Please subscribe for future tutorials covering these topics, including look ahead, extended cross, and rotationless F2L. So those three are pretty big for getting beyond sub 20. But for sub 20, remember, practice. And I gave you some tips that hopefully you can use starting now. So have a good day, guys. I will see you next time. Bye.